Batman 2022. Let's get into it.
What's your favorite scary movie? Hey, man.
We'll tear your soul apart.
Allow Pennywise to dance you now.
We're gonna get you.
Oh, Lord on the beast!
God, don't do that.
But sometimes, death is better.
Hey everybody, what's up? KillJoy Jake here, and instead of having friends, I have Batman movies. Oh, yes, that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about this very dark and gloomy version of Batman that I am so excited to crack into. Now, before I do that, though, I'm going to need y'all to like this video and subscribe for more, well, most of the time, horror content. So I do want to say this real quick. Obviously, this is not a horror movie, and this is kind of a page dedicated to more horror-based media or movies, but I am just a massive Batman and also a Spider-Man fan. That's kind of why I wanted to talk a little more about No Way Home. My audience didn't show so much of an interest in that. Now I'm talking about the Batman, so hopefully you guys are into this review. I would love to talk about some more other superhero movies in the future. One of the biggest things I loved about this movie was Robert Pattinson as Batman. Honest to God, fight me, but this is my favorite portrayal of the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman ever. I mean, we have, in the past, we've had multiple versions of the character played, and everyone's been pretty decent. I don't think there's been a bad Batman besides maybe the last version of Batman we got, but Christian Bale, for example, was one of my favorite Batmans beforehand. But my one problem with the portrayal of the character, though, was that they kind of showed him being this, like, playboy billionaire, and he's like, oh, I'm so happy, this is such a great life. I like that Robert Pattinson played this recluse, broken, mistake-driven character that is so much not anything like the Christian Bale version at all. He plays a so much darker version of the character that I love. It's so much more real. He makes mistakes throughout this entire movie too. He's not just like this perfect superhero. No, this is an early version of Batman that is much more dark, trying to figure out who he is and what his past is, what his legacy is going to be, and this is just, in my opinion, the best version of Bruce Wayne that we have seen on the big screen. Honestly, this most surprising thing that I did not like about this movie was Paul Dano as the Riddler. Dude, in the first two acts, he kills it. I think he's great. He's not on screen that much, and he's fine, but he's kind of doing what the Joker was doing in Dark Knight, which is like a bit of a problem for me. It's so similar, it's hard to deny. It's hard to deny the similarities between the Dark Knight and this movie, and it's all in the villain. It's all in the villain, and it's not done nowhere near as good as that. You're never gonna top the Dark Knight with a villain performance. You might as well just try some other avenue. They try to do that here, and it just does not work. I don't think it's not necessarily Paul Dano's fault. I think it's kind of a mixture of the writing and his performance that is like just uninspired in my opinion. By the time we get to this interrogation room scene where Batman is trying to get some answers out of Paul Dano's the Riddler character, he just does not make any sense with his motive. He starts off by criticizing Batman because he already knows he's Bruce Wayne, which is, I'm going to get to in a second, which is the biggest problem and the biggest plot hole of this entire movie. But we get to this point where Paul Dano's character is criticizing Bruce Wayne for being this billionaire human being who has just had like life hand delivered to him in a silver spoon, yada, 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 all that. He's going on about that. And then he says that his whole motivation for doing all this was for him and Bruce Wayne to be sitting together watching Gotham explode and deteriorate. What? I mean, it makes no fucking sense. Everything was fine up until I could have taken the parallels to Dark Knight. I could have taken that. That's fine. But this whole scene makes absolutely zero sense. If you would have, like, if he knows he's Bruce Wayne, right? Why wouldn't he have just used that leverage on Batman to make Batman do his bidding instead of setting up all this like BS through all the crime world of Gotham? It doesn't make any sense. It's a massive plot hole, and this movie is so well written besides this scene. If you take this scene out or you just change some of the dialogue, it works. But this is just such a massive and glaring problem with this movie. It sucks. I think it's great that the Riddler actually figured out Bruce Wayne's identity. That is something I've been wanting to see in a Batman movie for a very long time. One of the killers actually figuring it out, because it's painfully obvious sometimes in some of those older movies, and I feel like it's really cool that they finally did that in a film here. My problem with it is that they kind of allude to the idea that the Riddler has known that all along. So once again, if he's this mastermind genius that's perfect at setting up things with his mind, but he's like feeble with his body. Why wouldn't he have just used some of that leverage to make Batman do his bidding? He could have done that. That could have been the plot of this movie, and I feel like that would have been a little less interesting. I like where they went with all the mob bosses, and you had Zoe Kravitz's character being a part of that as well. And all these characters are entangled in this huge web of craziness and insanity and drama. It's so well written, but then it doesn't make any sense since he knows that Batman was Bruce Wayne the whole time. It's such a problem to me. I don't care for it. The other thing I don't love is that Paul Dano just goes 0 to 100 in this scene. This one scene kind of just took a poop on this whole movie for me. I really liked this film. It's a great movie, but this scene and the motivation behind the Riddler just kind of kills it. And he goes from this calm, relaxed, like genius character, like kind of think like John Kramer in the Saw movies. He kind of starts off there. That's a really perfect example, I think. He starts off as this John Kramer character, and in this same scene, he turns immediately into Jim Carrey from like the older movies, and he's suddenly all silly. He's singing Ave Maria. The theater I was in, people were laughing. Like, this was over the top, so silly in a movie that's supposed to be so dark and grim and this spooky version of Batman. And it was just like, what is this? Like, it was so good up until this point. Everything was perfectly well written. There was these awesome shots of like the entire chase scene between the Batman and the Penguin is amazing. Oh my God. I mean, what a well-written action sequence. And then we actually get this awesome scene. I will say this. Even though I did not care for that scene whatsoever, we do get this epic scene of all these other Riddlers attacking what is essentially Madison Square Garden. And that fight scene is amazing. I mean, just a perfectly well executed fight sequence. We see when people are fighting Batman, we just see him slowly getting more like he's trying to fight through it, but it's tough. Like, he's getting beat up. We see that in Robert Pattinson's performance just through action. We don't see that with dialogue or anything. He physically portrays that, and I just think it's excellent. It's very well done. The third act of this movie is amazing and super climactic. I just don't care for Paul Dano's performance, dude, which is shocking to me. Honestly, the one thing I thought about this movie that was going to be awesome was that, and it was a bit of a letdown. His look is terrifying when he's in the costume, but the moment that he's not in there anymore, I just don't care for his performance. He goes way too silly and zany for me, and just a big minus to this film, unfortunately. The story, the cinematography, and all of the other characters are written perfectly to a T, though. Besides that massive, glaring plot hole, I just love this movie. It's amazing besides that. And I'm trying not to even think about that because the rest of the movie is just so perfect. It really is. I see what people see in this movie, and it has potential to be some of the best Batman stories. We could get a future of Batman stories from Matt Reeves that are just phenomenal and brilliant, but this movie unfortunately just does not do it with the villain for me. And a lot of the reasons I love some of those older Batman movies is because of the villains. I mean, I love Batman. Batman's a great character, but the villain is kind of 50% of the movie. It's 50% who is Batman, how is this person portrayed in this movie, and who's the villain. That's always the two biggest factors of these movies for me, and unfortunately one of those things was just not met here. I really loved this film. It's an epic movie. It has, and another weird thing that's really well done in this film is the romance between Catwoman and Batman. That's not typically something I look for in movies like this, but it's actually really well done here. It's not too in your face, and it also kind of has a real ending. Once again, it's not something that's like super cinematic or Hollywood. We get a real ending to a love story that just can't happen. I really did love this film, and I wanna say it's my favorite Batman movie. I do, but because of that, it brings it down to about a 7 out of 10 for me. I really loved this film, but that is just too big of a problem to miss, man. I don't know. And the ending scene where they're trying to set up the Joker, it's so over the top and silly. It just doesn't fit in this movie. It starts off so well too. You get the Nirvana song, you get this dark and gloomy look to it, but then it just gets like real silly at the end. It's just two scenes that you just either don't have in the movie or you rewrite, And this is a flawless film. It is that one thing. I'm also judging this movie a little harder because of how well written it is and how fucking excellently executed it is. That's a weird sentence, but I'm also kind of tired. I'm filming this at 10 o'clock. I've been up since 6 in the morning. I really did enjoy this film, though. I don't want people to just take away from this review that the movie sucked, because it did not. There's no, it did not suck at all. I think this movie's phenomenal. It just has one big problem with it that, God, you can fix so easily too, which is a shame. But not every movie is perfect. Not every movie can be perfect. But what did you guys think about The Batman? Did you really like it? Did you think it was a 10 out of 10? Trust me, there's one fiber in my being that is holding me back from that, and it's the one that is latching on to Paul Dano right now, unfortunately. So I really did like it, but it kind of drags it down to a 7 out of 10 for me. I did like it, and I would like to see more from Matt Reeves. I think that he has potential to make a film as good or better than The Dark Knight, just from what I'm seeing in this film. Unfortunately, this just is not it. Hopefully we can get that in a sequel, though. Tell me what you guys think about The Batman in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching this review of The Batman 2022. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more horror content, but sometimes superhero movie content. Also, don't forget to support me on Patreon and, most importantly, Kickstarter for my film, Red Right Hand. It's going to be a Scream fan film. We're very excited for it if we can meet our goal of $5,000 before the end of the month. So make sure to check that out. The link for that will be in the description below. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.